Yeah, right. Well, let's get straight into it. Welcome, everyone, to the Count Us In podcast. My name is Harry Sermon. I'm joined by Jamie Joyner.
Good evening. How you
Hello,
doing?
mate. Yeah, all good. I'm joined by Matt Lacey.
Hi, Harry. Hi, Jamie. Hi, everyone. Hope you're doing well.
Hey, man. And we got a special guest. It is the one and only Mike Malone, everybody.
Hey. Hi, Mike. Welcome in.
Thanks for having me.
Mike, thank you so much for joining
to have
us. I've been following you for a very long time. We've DM'd, any of my sort of drumming, how do I say this, restoration problems, as it were. You kind of fire a few messages back and forth, and you always have the solution, which is always great.
That's not always the case, but yeah, I'm glad I could help you out.
Yeah, most of the time. It's a pretty successful hit rate so far, I'd say. But yeah, we've got Mike with us today for a special episode. If anyone listening doesn't know, Mike is sort of big on the YouTube space. Lots of sort of drum DIY stuff, building, restoring, making stuff, anything, you name it. If you've got an itch to watch, just some drum stuff, tension rods and all that sort of stuff. Amazing content. I've got a great series called Off the Beaten Path, visiting studios, drum shops, personal places, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, just like great drumming content, I would describe it as. Is that about right, Mike? Have I summed you up?
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of a mix of anything, but I guess the connective tissue is all gets back to drumming, right? So
yeah,
it could be DIY, or I used to do more with transcription and stuff like that, or maybe a vlog here or there. But yeah, just kind of a variety of things, all centered around drums.
Amazing.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's I love it. It's one of those like perfect YouTube channels that you can just kind of put on and just watch, and just kind of I learn a lot from, the sort of things that you post as well, like building stuff and, restoring things and all that sort of stuff. I love all that sort of stuff. So yeah, guys, anyone else want to jump in as well? I don't want to.
I liked. Go on, Jay. Go on.
No, I was just going to say as well, just on the videos and stuff, like it's so varied and so great to kind of follow all the things you've been doing, Mike. And then I'll put something on the chat, just like, Mike's doing this thing now, like he's gone here next, and now he's restoring this drum, and then it's just like there's so much that you're doing, and I think that was kind of one of the reasons why we wanted you on, and just to kind of get a feel for what it's like. I mean, just as a working drummer as well, obviously we're doing our own versions of doing that, and you're doing that in the US, but particularly I get a flavor for the ins and outs of it, what it is like as a working drummer in the US specifically, and if that varies from how we're doing it over here. I know you've probably obviously got various contacts and friends in the UK as well, and it'd be interesting to know if you've had conversations with them about how life as a drummer differs across the pond. So if there's anything that you're like, oh yeah, Brits, they kind of do it like this, so we just really don't hear that in the US. Like, is there anything that kind of comes to mind?
Yeah, I don't know. From listening to your show in the past, it's always been kind of interesting just hearing the way you talk about certain things. Like, I think I messaged Harry one time asking, what is a dep gig?
Oh, yeah.
Because you guys would use that term all the time. But I guess, is that just like a, what I would maybe call like a society gig? Like a wedding?
Well, I think I saw in one of yours where you need to get a sub bassist, Mike.
Oh, sure.
So that's what a deputize. So it's a substitute gig. That's what.
Dang, I should have messaged you. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, don't never message Harry.
Yeah,
clueless.
I think in the context of that, it was like, most of the time the term dep is kind of used in like weddings and sort of like your functions sort of.
Sure, yeah. I mean, if you're like a member of a band writing original music, you're not usually subbing out a gig. So
no, that's right.
Where those gigs happen are mostly within the society gigs, private party, that sort of thing.
Sure.
Yeah, it's take the gig and then sort the lineup. That's how it
figure it out later. Usually the week of. It's classic.
I saw the week in the life. I've been doing a bit of. You might see you've got a few more likes on videos, Mike, because I've been doing a bit of research.
That helps.
I saw the one you put out, which is about 30 minutes on a week in the life. I think it's about a year ago actually that you put that out. To be fair,
Okay.
so it's not recent. And I was quite you did I think you were doing a jazz session in a newish studio that was always being redone as a new studio.
Yeah.
And I think you had a big band gig and you're teaching. The thing that struck me, as Jay said about the variety of what you're doing, I think I do a little bit of editing for the reels that we put out for the podcast. And I know that can be fairly time consuming, even for a 1 minute, 2 minute reel out of a 45-minute episode. So how do you kind of manage your time to fit in that long form content, which I know takes a lot to film and then a lot to stitch together? How are you managing that within your diary against everything else? And how are you prioritizing when you put time aside for that, for example?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's wherever I can find it, right? Because like sometimes I get these comments on YouTube videos of people saying like, so how much, or is like most of your income come from YouTube, and then, you know, the smaller part is gigging? And it's like, no, I think it's probably less than 10% comes from, you know, residual ad revenue or something. So like, you know, my career and the way I make income to live is teaching lessons and playing gigs mostly. Occasionally there's other things, you know, like getting hired to do a studio session or other things around music and whatnot, repairs or something like that I might get called to do. But really it's like lessons and gigging are my bread and butter.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, but for me it's like, you know, all of my lessons have to happen after kids get out of school. Most of them are, you know, elementary, middle, high school age. So I can't really start teaching until 4 p.m. for a lot of students.
Yeah.
Sometimes 3:30, or if I have a student who's homeschooled, maybe I can teach them during the day, or an adult. But
yeah.
So, you know, for me, Monday through Thursday, I'm usually teaching from like 3:30 to 7 is where I kind of like it. I do it out of my home studio here, which is very convenient. I don't have to travel anywhere to do it. If I have a break in the middle, I can just come back to my desk and get in a little editing or something, kill some time, you know, and I could throw in a load of laundry and come back and do a little more. You know, I could be working on a bunch of things at once. And then gigging, obviously, that happens mostly in the evening, right? So
yeah,
I have a block of the day from when I wake up around like 8 a.m. till about like 3 o'clock where I can manage my own schedule.
Yeah.
So, you know, when I'm on a heavy editing mode, yeah, I might come down here and edit from like 9 to noon or something, and then try to pop over to the gym or something like that, and do a few other things before teaching. But yeah, it's just wherever I can squeeze it in, you know.
Yeah. Do you find you need to? I know Harry's got some quick fire questions. We're going to get to those in a minute.
Yeah.
Do you find you kind of, how do you keep that momentum up of that inspiration to kind of do some creative stuff when maybe your head's not in that space, or you've got other, as you say, you've got the household chores to do, and you've got life admin as well. Do you find that you ebb and flow a little bit, or are you pretty good at sticking to stuff in your diary and sticking to the plan?
No, that's a good question. It's a little of both, right? You know, I have a routine I release a full video that I work on at least every week on Mondays, and lately I've been trying to do 2 a week just to see what the return on investment would be if I kind of doubled my output. And but it's seasonal, you know. For me, like January is a pretty slow season gig wise. I don't know how it is for you guys, but I mean the summer is crazy here. I live in the Midwest in Wisconsin, so the summers are beautiful. You know, they're not too hot. People want to do things outside. There's opportunities to perform like 7 nights a week. If you're really advantageous, yeah, you could work a ton, even in a small area like I live. In the winter, you know, it could be nasty. We get a lot of snow, a lot of cold weather, a lot of days below zero. So it's like, you know, I might have a ton more free time. I might only have 1 gig on the weekend.
Yeah.
And I can carve out a lot more time for editing videos or doing a project down here in the basement. So I just try to make the most of the time I have free when I have it. Like the summer is usually a challenge for me to like take on big video projects or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. So it's all kind of seasonal, you know, kind of
yeah,
certain points of the year are going to be kind of gig heavy, and then other points maybe not so much. Is that the same with teaching as well where you are, or is that pretty consistent?
I don't know
across
about
the
you
board?
guys. For me, teaching stays fairly consistent. I have a few students who maybe take off for the summer. They travel a lot during the summer with their families or whatnot. Most of them stay on. Some of them come back for the summer because, man, being a high school kid these days is really tough in terms of like you have your full course load. And then if you want to be on the track team, you have track practice 5 days a week. You go in before school to do like additional training. So it's just a lot of work, you know, and if you're involved in multiple activities, it could be hard to be in drum lessons too. So the summer's about the same,
100%.
except I can teach during the day too, because they're not in school. So
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
nice.
great.
yeah.
Frees up the time
Yeah.
for the gigs, I guess. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I'm gone a lot more on weeknights gigging. So I try to, in the summer, I'll try to move the whole teaching load, which is like 4 days to 2, and just teach like in the morning, teach in the evening, and get it all done for the week on Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's cool, but
Frees
those
the
are
gigs then.
long days. Yeah.
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 Do you find? Do you do a lot of rehearsals? Because us three, definitely do a lot of rehearsals of like, whether it be like a function band, maybe every now and again we'll have a rehearsal before like the summer run of gigs, or like obviously a lot of original stuff. We're all on various originals projects, so we're kind of frequently, you know, getting to the rehearsal space. You know,
Yeah.
do you do a lot of that stuff?
I don't think I really do have that many rehearsals on a regular basis. I'd say maybe a few a month at the most. I have one tonight with a men's chorus that I like kind of play with on their spring concert run. So a lot of the rehearsals I have are not like creative writing sessions as much as like, all right, we've got, you know, a string of shows where we have to play this music. So we have to get together and kind of work it out before we start performing it or something. But yeah, I do have a couple bands that I rehearse with. I have like an original jazz group, kind of a trio, fusion-y, funky, jazzy, that we write music and record. And, you know, the three of us have just been close friends for 10 or 12 years. So it's kind of like hanging out at the same time.
Yeah.
But two of them have kids, so it's hard for us to find time to rehearse. You know, we make it work, but it's tough. And then I play in a larger, like funk R&B band with horns and everything, and that group will get together to rehearse when we work up some new music, because we do pretty complicated arrangements of a lot of these songs. You know, instead of just playing like a album version of a Justin Timberlake song, we might do like one of his live versions, which are just so much harder.
Yeah.
So we have to rehearse those.
Are you playing off charts for that gig, Mike? Is the whole
I was
band
gonna
on
ask that.
charts?
When that band started, I did write drum charts for myself. And honestly, by the time I write the chart, I've learned it. I feel for me, like, you know, when I was in school, if I rewrote my notes down, it helped me remember it. And so like, if I take the time to write out a drum chart, that's probably as much as I need to actually have it committed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, cool.
it's kind of annoying it works that way, because then you have it and you don't even use it anymore. But I don't know.
But
I'm fine with
if
that.
you'd not done it, you would have needed it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
With
Cool.
that band too, I write the horn charts. The guitar player usually kind of gives me a lot of clues on the rhythm charts, but I kind of write the arrangements and just make sure it's what we need. But I arrange the horn charts. So for me, it's like, I know where all their hits are really well. I know where people are supposed to enter, like, oh, this part's going to be open. This is how I'll cue into this outro and where it'll kind of jump in. So I think that helps a lot, you know, so I don't really need a chart as much. I'm kind of more worried about everybody else than my own part, honestly.
Yeah.
But that then kind of eliminates the rehearsal, I guess. You know, if you've kind of got, if everyone's got a chart, if that's how it's going to function, then why need to rehearse, you know, the stuff you've already prepared, I guess.
Yeah, you'd think.
Yeah, you think, yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but and
Rehearsing for other people.
I hate to call out horn players, but I've always felt like as a rhythm section player that maybe when you get a chart with, you know, just chords and slashes or hits, it's like, well, you've got to learn the voicing, or was the guitar playing, you know, big campfire chords, or were they doing a rhythmic thing? Same with drums, right? Our charts aren't very detailed. Horns, it's like you've got it written out note for note. They put articulations on it. So
yeah,
yeah, they they really like get granular. So I've noticed not just with my bands, but other bands I play with, it's like the rhythm section guys are used to kind of coming in and having run through it and worked out their stuff. And then I will see, some horn players show up to a rehearsal or a gig and like, did you send these charts out in the email? I got to download them. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, you haven't even looked at them yet?
Yeah. Not even open the email. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
that's
the
how it
singers
is,
that
though.
turn up with the iPads. The singers that turn up the iPads singing the same lyrics every
Yeah.
time. Like, come on.
I know our singers they're used to using them. I think it's a sign of the times, right? Like when I was going to school and studying jazz, I think there was a bigger emphasis on like knowing tunes and internalizing them, having them down, which as a drummer was like an easier task of more just like, well, you need to know the form, you need to know the feels, maybe some of the hits and stuff. But, like I would play gigs with piano player and bass player who don't bring books at all. And just like, if they don't know it, then the piano player might say like, okay, well the bridge is like this song and it's a 2-5-1 and it modulates to G from C or something. And that's a cool art form that's maybe getting lost since it's like, I have my iPad and I've preloaded, 100 different sheet music books on it, or I could just search it on the internet because you have internet wherever you go,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So different time, but I still have a lot of respect for like the jazz trio I play with. We make it pretty clear, like, man, we don't want to show up and be reading music, even if we're playing standards. Like, we just like that we all know these tunes and have built our own arrangements together and stuff. I think I always get impressed when I see bands that do that. It shows.
Yeah. And that does show even on the jazz one where that's arguably more acceptable to have charts in front of you.
Yeah, I think it's a little more commonplace. Yeah. I've been blown away. I go see like, a major touring jazz group that like plays together all the time and might see someone with charts. And it's kind of like, you guys tour all the time and you're like the peak of, national jazz touring acts. And even they're using music. So I don't love it, but it's kind of like accepted that that's what it's like now,
Yeah.
Cool.
And I use charts too. When I'm playing a church gig, I might only check out those tunes a few days in advance. I don't have them all committed to memory. And I'd rather sound good, like I'd rather have a chart and play it really well than not have it and miss some of those cool breaks or things. So
I think for me as well, like especially like a lot of my gigs are more like depth gigs. So I feel if it's like this one-off and you're learning a large amount of music in a short amount of time, and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be playing this again. Are you going to spend hours committing tunes to memory when maybe you chart them out or you get them roughly or you learn as many as you can, and then you're like, okay, I've only got the time to do a couple of days of prep. In my head, I'm like, if you have a chart and you can do a good job and it's a depth gear one-off, one and done, there's nothing wrong with that, I think. Whereas I think it is a bit different if you're on tour with a band, you're playing the same tunes every night, and you're kind of very familiar with your set, and you're still like rocking up with an iPad or whatever on charts. It's a little bit of a different thing in my head, anyway.
We all know the people we play with. We can just imagine, like it's very much a thing, isn't it, for us?
I like to at least I have one of the big iPads, right? That's like almost the size of a piece of sheet music, which is great. But I also have one of the little ones, and I just clip that on my hi-hat stand underneath my cymbals, and honestly, no one even knows I have the charts. You can't read, intricate 16th note rhythms, but you can read the form and a couple reminders or something. So I try not to advertise it that I have the charts. Maybe fool a few people.
We'll cut this bit out, Mike,
mix,
don't worry.
right? Just a set list or whatever.
It's just a set list, or maybe I'm doing my in-ear mix on there.
Exactly.
That's right.
100%.
Well, should we let's get into a couple of quick questions, and we'll kind of come back to some of these. Definitely, we want to talk about, the sort of gigging differences. We kind of already touched on a few little things already, but kind of, sort of gigging differences, especially in terms of, be interesting to talk about like distance and maybe how that relates to like, we've talked about it before, but like fees and stuff like that. What would make you take a gig? What are the sort of requirements, all that sort of stuff? And a couple of other little bits. Guys, shall I read one? Do you want to like take one each?
Well, I've not got them open, so you just go for it, Harry.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Cool.
Yeah,
I can if you need to.
Yeah, take it
Cool.
between. Yeah.
We'll take it between you. Okay, I'll start. Mike, what's your biggest drumming influence, or who is your biggest drumming influence?
Probably Art Blakey,
Good.
my favorite drummers, or Ed Thigpen maybe.
Cool.
Yeah, cool.
Love that.
That makes sense with your computer background. You see a lot in your videos.
Oh yeah,
Bass drum head.
yeah. It is like I've had that picture forever. My dog's name is Blakey too.
Oh, nice.
Very
So-
nice.
Love that. Love that.
Love it.
Great.
Cool. Okay, I'll pick another one. What's your favorite? Like, what's your go-to kit setup at the moment? Your configuration. What's like the most frequent one you find yourself playing?
I mean definitely 4-piece, but I like 12 and 14-inch toms, and then nothing bigger than a 20 on the bass drum. You know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my my lane.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
And do you find that's like you're switching that up depending on the project, or is that kind of like
Yeah.
covers most bases?
I have I mean, for me gigging, I don't want to haul anything extra I don't need. So
Yeah.
it's like one crash, one ride, hats, no extra cymbals, no extra toms or snares. I'm pretty minimal. But yeah, you know, if I'm playing smaller stuff or smaller rooms, I play an 18, you know, jazz stuff too. And then if it's anything bigger, I bring out the 20, my Bonham rig.
I noticed in your videos, Mike, is it a Bosphorus? You seem to use a Bosphorus, or you were in the videos. Oh, what Bosphorus ride? Is that?
Yeah.
I mean, the questions around it: would you play a 22 or a 20, or do you have a preferred cymbal size that you use? And I think I had another tag on question about whether you're endorsing any products or anything at the minute as well. But so whether that connects you with.
When I started my first touring gig, before I left college, I went away and toured for a little bit, and I signed on with Bosphorus as an artist back then in like 2013, I think. So
Wow.
Yeah.
I've been with them a long time. I've played plenty of other cymbals that are great too. So everyone makes great stuff, but honestly, the price of cymbals are expensive. So I'm grateful for the discount they offer me. And when I was growing up, my teacher studied with Jeff Hamilton, who was kind of the premier Bosphorus artist. So, you know, he had Bosphorus cymbals, so I wanted Bosphorus cymbals. So I started buying them in high school as I was getting more into jazz and that. And so, yeah, it's a blessing to be able to play their stuff and get to try all their different variety of cymbals they make.
What's that one that you're using? Is it a 20? What the model is that?
I use a 22 a lot.
Okay.
The one that's like unlathed, their Master Vintage series, those are really great. I mean, I can play it in any room.
Yeah.
You know, what's funny is I've had the ability to kind of work with them directly for the past, 12 years now. And like the ones that I still play on every gig are one that I bought in college, one that I bought in high school. And then don't tell anyone, but I play a set of old 50s Zildjian A hi-hats that I also got in high school from my drumline instructor. So it's like, I think I'm a creature of habit, and cymbals are super special, right? In terms of like, when you know how it reacts to any room with any stick on any kit, like then you can really get some work done with that. So
sure.
Yeah.
That is cool.
That is.
And
that is really cool.
are you playing Remo heads, Mike, or do you have a preference, or do you
yeah,
match?
you know, what's funny is like I loved Remo heads growing up because that's like what all my idols played and whatnot. And I play a lot of Evans stuff too, but mostly because they have a rewards program. I don't know if they have that in the UK. The player points.
We get that when we buy stuff because I think the number is the player points on the inside of the box. When you buy the
they
heads?
stamp it on the box, and then you put that into your account, and like you collect points, and you can use it to buy heads from them.
I didn't know that.
I fell foul of. I bought heads online, and when they sent them, they put the 12 inside the 14 box. So I only got one box and one lot of player points. So I was
you got ripped.
Yeah, man.
I know. I have a friend who works at a music store in town, and I always ask him, I was like, do you ever just take pictures of those before they check out? Because most people, I don't think, redeem them,
No.
Yeah.
But, with doing so many projects down here where I'm buying drum heads and then putting them on, I was like, well, that makes sense. Or like occasionally I get hired by a school or a church to come and rehead a bunch of drums, and they're like, well, what should we get? I'm like, well, you should get all these because
You
then
got
I'm
a
going to get a
point.
bunch of, and they're great heads too. So
Yeah.
I'm not a purist. But I mean,
Yeah.
man, if I could have one endorsement, it would be with the drumhead company because that's what you go through. My cymbals, it's like I still play the ones I bought 15 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
What
it'd be
sticks,
nice to have some support.
What sticks are you using? What's like the go-to?
I do have I have 2 pairs of sticks I use, the Vic Firth 85As for all of my louder stuff, and I think they're between a 7A and a 5A in terms of thickness. They're pretty common. And then for all my jazz stuff, I found these Vader bebop sticks
Oh, okay.
so long ago, and what's really cool about it is they offer them in 3 different sizes, like 500, 525, and 550. And they offer all 3 of those sizes in either maple or hickory. So it's like if you like the stick, you can really fine tune which thickness works for you and which weight, because hickory would be heavier. So I use the maple stuff, when I'm playing quieter rooms, it's really nice.
Right.
And kind
right.
of more graceful. So yeah, I love those. And I don't see anyone else ever playing them.
I've never heard of them.
No,
I
don't know whether it's I whether you checked out a previous episode, Mike, but there's been a bit of a kind of changing of the guard with a lot of shops over here because of the distribution.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so Veta have been a little bit more prominent, I think, in the UK market, and I think the social media stuff they're putting out is. They were at the UK Drum Show last year, made a point of being there and making a big fuss. So I think they're really pushing to be a kind of a more widely known name in the UK, that's for sure. But we'll check those out.
That's got to be interesting in terms of, we were talking about difference for gigging drummers, but I imagine the difference of what's available easily or what things cost. Over here you can find an old 60s Acrolite pretty affordably, and my whole childhood you could find them at every garage sale. Or you could find them at a music store for like $40, and I would just buy them and like spray paint them or do dumb stuff to them because they were throwaway drums. They weren't like renowned or sought after. But I'm finding vintage American drums over there I think is a lot harder, and they're a lot more expensive, right?
Very much so. Me and Jamie went to Rusty Drums, which is like I think it's technically the biggest vintage drum shop, definitely in the UK.
It's got to be. It's got to be.
It's massive, but
it's like floor to ceiling.
It was insane. But I bought an Acrolite and it was like 480 quid or something like that. Yeah. Which is a lot, because I know you've definitely done like a couple of videos where you picked it up for like $100 or whatever, which is.
Yeah, I got one recently for like $30 with another drum for free. So I'm keeping it though. I didn't flip it.
Yeah. That's I think is if I was over by you, I'd be lethal, because I just have like a stack of Acrolites for no reason,
Collect them. Yeah.
Just
I've had so many
paper baskets.
Yeah. But what's vintage stuff is pretty hard to come by over here, and you definitely sort of pay like a premium. I mean, I know a lot of brand new stuff is expensive. Like if you want like a broadcaster, is it a broadcaster you've got, or is it a Brooklyn you've got a Gretsch kit?
I don't have either of them anymore. I had a Brooklyn for a while. I sold it.
Oh, okay. Oh, did you? Is that the one that you did like with all the different configurations?
Yeah. I got a little carried away with trying to build up the shell bank of having every size.
Yeah.
But then I got a little more carried away with doing that on the kit I have now. So.
That's a shame. But yeah, like even those, they're like, if you want to get like just a 3-piece shell pack, it's going to cost you like $3,000 over here.
I know
crazy.
it's.
I don't know what it's like over there.
Probably close to what it would cost here.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in college, probably around 2012 or something, I bought like my first professional level drum set. It was a Gretsch New Classic, which they don't make anymore, but they were really great. And I worked at a music store, but they didn't deal Gretsch. But he was able to get me a deal from somebody, and I think it was maybe $1,800 for a bop kit for a nice American-made high-end drum set.
Wow!
And I bet now it would cost $3,500 or more, which is tough for a college student, who's like not rolling in it to be able to invest in something like that.
Yeah, I mean, well,
100%.
we all play Catalinas,
Yeah.
just because, just kind of do really. I mean, they're just great kits. I
I
think you
love
have one
that.
as well, don't you, man?
I
Yeah,
had one.
like,
I
oh,
I
you
don't
have it
get too
more.
emotionally attached to any kit. I do regret getting rid of my Catalina kit just because I bought it, around the time I graduated college and used it for hundreds, if not, 1,000 gigs.
Yeah.
And I traded it to a friend. He's still using it, so that's cool.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I also like building drums.
Yeah.
So-
I've noticed.
Yeah, I
Good.
the bop kit I use now, which kind of replaced my Catalina I built, and even the other gigging kit I use I made last year.
Yeah.
So
But that's the thing. Like we've all talked before, privately, and I think on here as well. Like trying to figure out what to spend and where to kind of put your money. Like if you want to buy an upgraded kit, even like a Renown over here is like 1,600 quid. You might be able to get it for maybe a brand new, which is it's a lot of money. You can get a lot of great stuff for that amount of money. So when the Catalinas sound as good as they do, it's kind of really hard to kind of want to put your money into 3 drums, whereas you could get like so much stuff for that sort of price point. It's
Yeah.
yeah,
it's a
and I
real-
like the
real hard
Catalinas
one.
more than the
Really?
Renowns. I've played those. I think a big part of it is they weigh less.
Right.
Yeah.
They have lighter weight hardware, which I think some people, the drum world likes to associate that if things are heavy duty, that it's nicer.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you're a gigging drummer, it's like, man, I'd rather have it be lightweight and easy to haul around. And I've kind of noticed I do like die-cast rims. I think that's a noticeable sonic thing. But
yeah.
on a lot of drums, I like triple flange, the lightweight ones, more
Mm.
than I like even the heavier weight triple flange. So sometimes the cheaper thing is better. And I think Catalinas, they're thinner shells, and it's more like a vintage drum. Those
Yeah.
were thinner shells and not as dense. So
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
people have approached me because I've got bop sizes. I've got an 18, 12, 14, and it's got the Gretsch logo. I happened to get that Gretsch logo when I bought it on the front head, and people have come up to me after a gig, and I think because it's a color that's pretty rare. It's a kind of a yellowy kind of almost like a hickory stick type color.
okay.
People have come up to me and said, "Oh, is this a vintage kit? It must be like, is it 50s or is it like early 60s?" I'm like, "No, I think it's like 1984, or it might even be 2017." Because Gretsch have been a bit. I've tried to get some information on the year, and some Gretsch owners groups have given me conflicting information.
interesting.
But I think it's a color that only made like 40 versions came to Europe of that color. So
That
what
too,
been
I've seen
told.
some kits in Europe that I'm like, dang, why don't they offer that here? That's awesome.
Yeah. But no, it is a. I mean, we got a lot of Premier vintage stuff. Premier being UK, there's a market for that, and I've got a Premier, so I'm on a few of those Facebook groups, and there's a lot of stuff changing hands fairly reasonably. But yeah, we don't have a real vintage homegrown stuff here, do we? So it's all
You can get a lot of Rogers stuff. It's most of the time it's
Yeah,
like
that's
the UK made Rogers stuff, which I've never played a UK one. I played an American one, but I don't think they're supposed to be as nice. I don't know. Maybe you might be able to confirm that, Mike, or not. But I don't think the English ones are supposed to be as good. As nice
I don't know. What's funny though is like I've one of my closest friends, kind of my like drum best friend. He always he'll come on a lot of the trips with me, or he'll go to the Chicago Drum Show with me every year, which is a big event. And we're both working drummers, so it's like we see the vintage kits there. It's like, oh, here's this 60s Gretsch kit. They want $5,000 for it. Like no one can afford to buy that and go play it.
Yeah.
So, but it's funny. It's like, Gretsch and Ludwig are very revered, and I think very expensive to buy a good condition vintage kit. And then we've kind of noticed in the last couple of years, like, okay, maybe more people are getting hip to Rogers and they're starting to get more expensive.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
people don't really think Slingerland clearly has as much value because those are more affordable. Or like back in the day, the MIJ drums, the made in Japan stuff, those were all, you would see them for $100 for a kit, and just like, throwaway drums.
Yeah.
And now they're getting to be $600, $700, $800. So it's funny seeing how the market is kind of changing.
Trends.
And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like once Aaron Sterling started playing an MIJ kit and was posting about touring on it with John Mayer, then they got really expensive, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
He's literally using like anything that's circular to play on his kit, and it sounds
Yeah.
amazing. And everyone's like, "Oh, let's just go and get like a cheap, no unbranded kit, and that will do." You know, that's like now the thing, isn't it? You know, do you find
Yeah.
that like has the Chicago Drum Show been like your sort of time of year to like go in and sort of eye up any gear and stuff like that? Because like we have the UK Drum Show over here, which I think the three of us would agree is kind of like our yearly sort of like spend, as it were. Because obviously stuff's discounted and it's still expensive, but you can get a lot of money off of like they were selling like brand new DW 5000 pedals. What did you get yours, Matt, for like 150 quid? And
Mine,
like
it was 190.
like
190, and they retail here at like 250, 260.
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah,
pretty good.
Yeah, the Chicago show's a little different because it's not like every company is coming and exhibiting new equipment. It really was the Chicago Vintage Drum Show for decades.
Oh, okay.
But as the vintage market has become less and less practical for people, it's like, oh, Gretsch has a booth, and they kind of just show off some of their new stuff.
Sure.
And Paul Cooper, who builds the drums, he'll be there and talk with people, which is cool to get a personal experience with some of those people that you see in social media posts, maybe the builders or craftsmen behind some of those companies. A lot of independent, like cymbal-smiths are there, or independent drum makers are there. So it's kind of like the smaller indie circle of the drum community, which I really kind of connect with more and find it interesting.
Yeah.
Did you see Dave Collingwood there last year or the year before?
I don't know. He might have been there because they've been doing a lot more with the cymbal-smiths in the past few years.
Yeah.
But he's from the UK, right?
He's literally like 20 minutes
Bristol,
away from me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I've got a lot of stuff modded from him, and he's like, done a few little bits for me. He's a legend. But I think he's worked quite closely with Timothy Roberts.
Yeah, he's someone that I get to see every year, and it's kind of cool for me. Like, when I first started going, I was making a couple videos and stuff, but now every year when I go back, more and more people kind of come up and say hi and maybe let me know they watch my stuff, and that's really cool and definitely encouraging to keep going. So
man. Yeah. Are you in any like what's like your main bands, like your main projects and stuff like that? Because I know you talked about your jazz trio and stuff like that, but are you sort of like we talked about dep gigs and so on and being like an original band member, we're all part of things like that. What are like your main sort of projects that you're sort of part of?
Yeah, I mean, if you would look at like my schedule on my website, it would just have like dozens of different bands over the next few months. The ones I'm really passionate about would be, Stuck on Blue is that jazz trio. The Pocket Kings is kind of that R&B funk band I play with that does a lot of weddings and stuff. So those are two that I'm really invested in and want people to check out when they ask about coming to see groups I play in. But I lead a big band, or co-lead a big band called Water City Jazz Orchestra. We play once a month, just a reading band gig to keep my big band chops up.
Nice.
And then, I support a bunch of artists. I play with a great vocalist, Erin Krebs, a lot. She's really wonderful. Play with some different, piano trios or something like that. But a lot of that is like, someone gets a gig, they call their friends to play. If that friend's not available, maybe they call me and I fill in or something. So it's not as much like we're a working group where we're recording music or promoting it in that sense. But
would you kind of class that as more like a session style kind of where you sort of dip in? Because I was going to say like being part of that many projects or being involved with that many projects, that sounds, I want to know the secret to that, because there are so many, like when you're trying to spin so many plates and being the sole drummer of one project, for example, or of like multiple projects, that's going to be really difficult to juggle. But it sounds like you've got quite a few where, if you're not around, someone else will get asked, or if someone else isn't around, you'll get asked. And is that kind of how you like it? Is that how you've made it?
Yeah, I do it, and there's part of it I don't like. Like, we have a really rich community where I live of a lot of working musicians who make their living solely off playing, or some playing and teaching. And over the past years, especially when I first moved back, it's like I was the first call sub for X band because their drummer was kind of on terms where it's like he's in 20 bands, and so he can say no. And it kind of would weigh on me where it's like, man, I'm really invested in this and putting in the time, and I'm doing 90% of the gigs. And then when they get a really cool gig to like open for a big band, then the other guy kind of steps in and does it. And I have to be careful about that too the other way, because like, yeah, if I'm playing with so many people, then, you know, someone who kind of thinks of me as their drummer, or, you know, I record on their albums and then they get called for a last minute gig if I can't make it, you know, then I'm not letting them down, but, you know, try to make sure that I'm not like abusing that relationship, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So that could be the double-edged sword of it, I think. It's tough to maintain really good quality relationships when you're stretched that thin.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, go on, Harry. Go on.
No, mate, you go on.
I just wanted to change tack a little bit, actually. You mentioned, Mike, in terms of your kind of doing college and going through music education and what you've done at college. And from an education, I just wanted to say it was great that I saw the thing you did with Dave Stanek at his, because I know I've never met Dave. We know each other via Instagram because we ended up on I think I did a Zoom call. I didn't do a Zoom call. I was on a Zoom call that Vinnie Colaiuta was the guest, and there was about 150 people on there, and Dave happened to be on there, and I mentioned something in the comments, and Dave replied to me, and consequently we struck up, and I found him out and I looked him up on Instagram. So it was great to see you, who I follow, visiting him. That was great to see. But in the UK, we have a kind of grading system for drums, and I know I don't think it's something that happens in the US. Can you just give us a rundown in terms of from, I guess we call it primary school. I think you guys call it elementary and high school. I'm not sure of the tiers, but how or what is the current state of like music education, either in schools or with, because I go into schools and teach as a peripatetic teacher, as we call it. What's the makeup of that education at kind of earlier years for kids in the States at the moment?
Yeah, that is interesting you bring that up, because I've heard you guys talk about that, like grading tier and stuff, and always it has piqued my interest. But here in the States, you know, you would start kindergarten, elementary school when you're about 5 years old, and that through 5th grade. We have kindergarten, then you have 1st grade, 2nd grade. I don't know why it doesn't just start at 1. But
so then the same actually.
Through about the time you're 12, you're in elementary school, and then you move on to middle school and high school, which is the next 7 years of your education. And usually in that setting is when most schools introduce the option to participate in music ensembles. So you could do choir, you could do orchestra or band. Although I'm kind of finding that less and less schools have orchestra anymore, that string programs like that are more infrequent.
I was going to ask you that, because I feel like over here it's the arts in general, to be honest, but definitely music are being sort of funds are being cut, and it's being sort of pushed down a lot more, and you know, less orchestras, less swing bands, and all that sort of stuff, or even more contemporary stuff. You don't really hear of it much more. You know, it's kind of just, if you're lucky, the peripatetic stuff, and that's kind of it.
I felt really lucky when I got to high school. We had jazz band as a class every day for an hour, which was awesome. That doesn't happen at my school anymore. They do it like one day a week before school or something, and I think it's even seasonal, which is a bummer. A lot of schools are getting better about having like a after school jazz band, but also, you know, if kids are involved in a sport, they can't do it. So it's challenging to be really involved in music and really involved in athletics or academics. But I always loved it too. We had the top concert band. We had 4 concert bands at our high school, and the top one rehearsed at the same time as the top orchestra. So like once a week, I would go over with the orchestra and do symphony rehearsals, you know, and play like proper symphonic music with the strings and brass and percussion and everything. And that is something you don't see at a lot of schools anymore. That was really good prep for me getting into, you know, going to a college music program where I was in the symphony orchestra as a regular thing. So
right, I get the impression that in the States that there's a lot more emphasis on you're in a band, whereas I think you're not learning an instrument just learning an instrument. You seem
Like
to
an
be part
ensemble,
of
isn't it?
ensemble. Whereas here, it's kind of, I'm learning the guitar, I'm learning the trumpet, I'm learning the violin, I'm doing drums.
And grades as well.
Yeah,
And the grades.
the band is like the second option. Like you could, if you want to, if you happen to know someone that plays, has guitar lessons or whatever. It's almost non-existent.
Yeah, it's not formatively part of. I mean, when I was at school, the school had a music teacher, and that music teacher taught. He could play guitar, recorder, which I don't know whether you have in America, Mike, but we all have the recorder.
They do in the young age, yeah.
Yeah. He played. He might play piano, he might play a multi-instrumental, and he would take a music lesson every week. But that doesn't happen now. And I was saying to one of my students today that ironically, I get work by going in and teaching music on a self-employed basis because the schools don't have. That's not part of the curriculum as a standard thing anymore. So
I know that makes me sad.
Yeah,
it's like
I know.
I don't know. I didn't get it was tough for me to focus in a science class, and I couldn't imagine going to school for 8 hours a day and not getting an hour. To me, it would be considered a break where I could just play an instrument and not have to think in the same sort of way, be more relaxing and therapeutic to be in band for an hour. So
yeah, huge.
100%.
It's getting tougher. We're pretty wild times in America politically right now.
Really? We've not noticed?
Yeah. As you might see. It's even stranger being here. But so I don't really know what the future holds for the education system, but some schools are really good about it. I just got hired on at a high school to teach percussion where it's, it's not full time. It's seasonal. During this winter season, they prepare for this solo ensemble festival. It's what it's called, where every kid works up a piece of solo repertoire and performs it for a judge. So I might be more busy during that season working with the percussionist one-on-one. Or in the spring, a lot of high schools will perform in a parade, in March with the marching band. So it's they want me to come in and get the drummers tuned up and ready to go on their material. So it's seasonal, but it's cool that they have the option to bring in a specialist because it's tough being a band teacher and being maybe their background is as a trumpet player. Yeah. And so they can relate to a saxophone, even though it's a reed and a brass instrument, but it's the idea of wind and articulation and melodic instruments is very relatable. I think percussion is very unique. Yeah. And you're doing so many different things. You don't just have to be an expert in percussion. You have to be good at all the battery instruments, snare drum and bass drum and timpani and all the mallet instruments and all the handheld accessory instruments. So it's nice when schools have a budget to bring in kind of a specialist for that side of things.
Yeah. So did you went to college and studied jazz, or was it music as a whole, or what was your route out of high school?
I went to a school, University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, which is near Minneapolis, which is probably the biggest city by. I studied classical percussion, because they didn't have a jazz degree there, but they had a really good jazz program, but it was all extracurricular, which was cool. I liked getting the, kick in the butt in terms of you got to become a good mallet player and you've got to be a good technician on the snare drum and everything, and if you want to be really good at drum set too, you'll work on that on your own and get better. So it was a good challenge, but that was a really cool town too. They had an amazing jazz program, but then there's a really big band from there, Bon Iver, if you've ever heard of that group.
Yeah.
And so there was this really thriving indie music, original music scene at the same time. So it's just amazing town to be in and live in while all that was blowing up, and a lot of good music happening.
Wow.
Great.
Very nice.
And what did that lead on to after you kind of graduated? And
well, usually in America, college would be a 4-year program, but if you're lacking in your urgency, you might take 5 years, or some people even longer. But after my 4th year, I left to go tour with a jazz big band full time, and then came back and finished after that. So, and then I went and kind of started traveling and playing again after college.
Okay,
that kind of set you up then, I guess, kind of
Yeah.
carry on.
I think when I was touring full time, some of it, my first touring gig was full time on a bus and not like one that you would have a bed in, you know, because it was a big band. So it was like 18
Yeah.
people.
Wow.
And so that was pretty grueling. We weren't staying in glamorous hotels, you know, or playing the biggest festivals or anything like that. But it was really a cool way to see the whole country from driving and experience some different areas and meet musicians who had a different experience than me.
Yeah.
So, and then after that, I ended up touring with this vocal jazz group for a while. And they were mostly playing with symphonies, playing on what would be called like pops concerts, you know, instead of doing their orchestral music, they're doing this 1940s review with this vocal jazz group.
Okay.
So that was cool to get to connect with some of those, you know, bigger symphony shows and whatnot. And I played on a cruise ship for a little bit. And that was a cool way to see the world and meet musicians from all over the world too, who were playing on that ship. So yeah, and I think the whole time doing that, you know, I would come back to this area in Wisconsin and I would always pick up subbing work last minute that paid good and any night of the week. And it was just like, man, it's so cheap to live here too. And there's great musicians that challenge me, so it's not like I'm sacrificing musicianship by coming here.
Yeah.
And I don't know, my lifestyle kind of blends well with living in the Midwest. Like I could have tried to move to New York or LA or something like that, you know, a big market, but man, like my world stops on Sundays when the Packers are playing. So I like being around people who see the world like me a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's important.
Were you conscious of like in those early days when you were like on tour and stuff like that, and then come back and kind of, you know, taking sub work and stuff like that? Were you conscious about like trying to build up, like you said, that repertoire of like people to kind of stay connected to? Because like definitely over here, and maybe we can kind of get into the gigging sort of thing, like definitely over here, like there's definitely I guess it's just the professional musicianship sort of circuit, but there's definitely like a sort of an idea of like making the, you know, first good impressions and kind of staying well connected, and who else do you play with, and kind of, you know, if you know, thanks for a good gig, if you want to use me again, blah, blah, all that sort of stuff, kind of, you know, not kind of burning bridges and making sure you do a good job so that you can kind of be that person that can kind of get called at any point. Was that kind of something you were conscious of? I definitely got kind of enforced that after like studying, you know, like when I started to get out and start doing a lot of like depth stuff, it was like, okay, I want to try and, you know, make as many connections as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that probably stays true wherever you go, right? Is like making the most of your first impression. You know, as someone who was like trying to break into the scene, I definitely was really good about, okay, if I'm playing this show with this person, I really know all their music super well. It's clear that I was prepared. I showed up early, showed up in the right clothes or whatever, you know, we had to wear.
Yeah.
Be quick at communicating. If someone asked me to play, I, you know, try to answer them right away. You know, not try to be so concerned about the financial part of it, you know? Like, I try to be good when I ask people to play now, too. It's like, I should tell you what it pays right away. But sometimes it's, you know, a flexible thing. We're like, hey, would you be free this date? I'm trying to work this out and see if it can happen. Like, I don't have all the details, you know? And it's nice when people are like, well, it depends how much it pays. It's like, okay, well, then I know that our relationship is mostly about if I can pay you enough, which is kind of, and it's not like that, but you know, it's fair to be about good business.
That's an interesting point, I think, you know, because we've talked about that in the past about like, you know, weighing up whether to take a gig or not, and having all the factors sort of laid out on the table so that you can then make that like informed decision of like, okay, is this going to be worth it to me, whether financially or, you know, kind of with building connections or whatever. But it sounds like that there's like this high value, or that it could be important to place this high value on, well, actually just first impressions, showing up, doing it, and pay almost taking a little bit of a back seat, because there could be opportunity for further connections or a callback or whatever it might be, that pay almost is not irrelevant, I think, but less of a factor than if you were weighing up taking, I don't know, a wedding gig or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like when I was trying to really get in the scene, it was like, I want to play every night. You know, I'll say yes to anything, even if it like barely works in my schedule, where it's like, all right, well, I got to go to this place first and set up a drum set, and then leave, go pick up my other drum set and set it up and play the gig there. That way I can tear it down and go back to the other place and not have to take time setting it up because I'm only going to have 5 minutes to get there or something, you know, like
Wow,
sure.
yeah.
I would do some pretty crazy stuff to try to play like 3 gigs in one day, you know, or like more than that. So, but yeah, I wanted to play everything and I wanted to be working every night. Some of it was like not in a braggadocious way or like the glamour of it, but like I wanted people to see that when they saw like my schedule or whatever, like, dang, that guy's working every day. He must be good. Like we should try to get him if he's available, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But
And just making connections too, you know?
Yeah.
But it's as always, it's almost how technically able you are on the instrument plays second to are you a nice person?
Yeah.
Are you honest? Are you a good hang? Are you punctual?
Can you
Are
get
you
the job
prepared?
done?
You know, just the people skills come before, and your business or admin skills come before actually your ability on the instrument. That can.
Yeah, there's a lot of good instrumentalists, you know. And as someone who gets to hire a lot of people to play with me, it's like, yeah, those other things are probably at least as important, if not more important, you know.
Yeah.
It's tough being a drummer too, like when you're booking the gig, because it's like I get called to do hey, can you get a jazz trio together to play this cocktail party? Sure. And then if I call 10 piano players and none are available, or guitar players or bass players, it's like I can't go play by myself. You know, so then the gig's off and I'm at home not making money. Like if you're a piano player, I feel like maybe you see the world a little differently. Like, oh, I couldn't get the trio together, I'll just go play solo.
Yeah,
that's not as fun, but I'll still go make even more money or something, you know?
Yeah.
So I think drummers kind of inherently know that like you got to be a good team player. You're never going to play solo. Well, like some drummers are out there playing solo drum gigs, but they're not doing it at the wine bar, you know?
Yeah.
He's not getting wedding gigs doing that. And like, good for him, you know? But
TikTokers doing that as well.
Yeah. I guess that's the social thing too, is that's what's so awesome about the social media world is like, if I'm motivated to do something, it can happen, you know, even if it's not what I was first expecting.
Yeah, that's the thing though as well. Like, you know, talking about like, oh, you know, it looks like you're so busy, you've got such a full schedule. I think we talked about it before, but like sometimes to some degree that can also have a bit of a negative effect. Yeah, shooting the foot, because like I've had some people message me before where it's like, oh man, you're like clearly so busy. And it's like, oh no, I've not gigged for like 4 weeks, but I've just got a load of content that I've filmed over the last couple of months that I'm just sat at home posting. It looks like you're busy, which is great. So then they go, I didn't message you because I just assumed you were so busy. And you're like, you know what I mean? I don't know if that happens over, you know.
I have had that happen. Not as much with like posting videos, but just like, oh, you're so busy playing, I didn't even think you'd be available. So I didn't want to, you know, waste my time sending you a message and then waiting a day to hear back. It's like, well, one, I'll get back to you in 5 minutes. So it's not going to cost you a lot of time. And two, like, I told my singer friend Erin that I play with one time, she was like, I was going to ask you to play this gig, but I saw on your website you were already playing that day. I'm like, that is something I can get out of. You know, I was just subbing for someone else. I can probably find another sub that won't upset the band leader, you know?
Yeah.
And then I could play with you because I'm more invested in your music or whatever, you know, like, or sometimes vice versa. She's had me booked on gigs and I'm like, hey, you know, if I'm not available, Pocket Kings don't play. Like I run the band. So do you mind getting a drummer sub so I can make this other thing happen? And I try not to abuse that back and forth with people, but
yeah, sure.
Yeah. It's like sometimes if you act like you're too busy, then people don't think they're like, oh, you would never want to do my thing. It doesn't pay that much. It's not that great anyways.
Yeah, I get a lot of messages that are like when people ask me if I'm free, they're always like, it's a really long shot. It's like, you're probably out, or, you know, you probably have got so much on, but are you able to do this date? And I'm just like, yeah, no, of course. Like this is fine. But there's this like expectation of like, oh, you're this busy, you know, working drummer and stuff like that. But what I was going to ask actually, because you mentioned just now that like you will reply within like 5 minutes. Is that like something that you make a rule of? Like if someone asks you for a gig, you're like on
I'm
it.
probably exaggerating. I try to get back to people quick though. Or for instance, if it's like, well, I would have to talk to this other person to work out the schedule. I try to let them know like, hey, I really want to do it, but I'm kind of tied down till 6, so I don't know if I can get there on time. Let me see if I can reschedule this lesson or something like that, you know. Just try to stay in touch and let them know that I want to do it. I think that says a lot.
Yeah.
Or if I can't do it, I tell them that too. Like, oh man, I would love to do that. Please ask again. It's not that I don't want to. I just can't be there that day.
The transparency, isn't it? You know?
100%. I think you hit nail on the head there. Like the communication and just like keeping people in the loop and not leaving people hanging. If someone's looking for a drummer and you just like leave the message unread and don't get back to them, and they're like, oh, I don't know if he's going to say yes, or should I ask another drummer or so on. I always tell this story of like, one time someone messaged me, I saw it come up, they're like, oh, it's a long shot, but are you free this Saturday? And it was like Wednesday or something like that. And I actually was, and I was kind of hoping for a gig. And I was just about to bite into a sandwich. And I was like, no, I'm just going to have my lunch. I'm going to finish this episode that I'm watching. Then I'll reply and be like, yeah, love to gig. And by the time I got back to him, he was like, oh, sorry, mate, it's already gone. Like I just sent like a sort of mass message to like 4 drummers, and it was the first one got back to me, and I just needed to fill it, which makes total sense when it's a wedding or whatever, and it's 4 days away. They need to fill that quick. But at the same time, I don't want to be like, every time I get a message about a gig, no matter what I'm doing, be like, oh, I've got to check my diary and I've got to like message this person and you know, maybe, you know, check if this person, like for me it's like, oh, can this person have my dog for a bit if I need to like overnight work? It's all these factors which in the moment I'm like, I can't really actually make a decision about this until I've got a bit of time. So it'd be interesting, like whether you find like you are itching to just get back and say something, or whether it's actually like, no, maybe you let them know that you'll get back to them, and that's kind of like the minimum, and then you can kind of like take a bit of time and like give them a proper answer. But do you find there's a lot of like mass text like that or like a message where it's kind of first come first serve?
Yeah, you know what's funny is like, I think it's good to be transparent and let people know, but as someone who's like organizing a bunch of players for different things, sometimes I'm like, especially if the gig's like a year out, you know, or something like that. I'm like, you don't have to update me every 5 minutes with how like, well, my wife works till 6 and then I'll be able to talk to her with the calendar and work it out. So I guess it's just figuring out what's appropriate for the setting, especially if a gig's coming up and it's like 2 days away and someone got sick. I don't get mad. Like, I wouldn't get mad when someone's like, oh, I also sent it to another drummer. But if someone asked me to do a gig 2 months from now and then I reply back in 10 minutes, they're like, I got someone else, I'd be a little annoyed.
Yeah.
Like, I thought you wanted me, you know? Like,
yeah, that's the thing.
So,
the mass messaging is a bit annoying. In
I just wanted,
you know.
Sorry, H. Mike, I'm conscious of your time because I know you're going to get set to teach in 20 minutes.
I am set. I'm ready to go. Let's turn the lights on in there. Yeah.
Oh, good man. I just wanted to kind of speak to your YouTube channel a little bit, and we must make sure you mention your social media outlets before we go. In terms of, did you have, and I think it's this thing about, you know, everyone's in this Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok world of small, short content, and obviously the YouTube, and I now try to put as much long form content out on YouTube as possible, and then maybe reference a small edit on Instagram. Did you ever have any game plan in terms of when you started to post, what your content and how you've gone about, maybe not intentionally, but how your kind of the number of people following your channel has built to, I think you're 17,500-ish now. Was there any game plan behind that, or was it just about just putting out different stuff and like the variety of stuff you do? And was there any goal in sight to start with, and what plans you've got with it?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely more goals now than when I started. Just to give the history of it, like, I started putting out videos every week in March of 2020.
Right.
Just randomly, my life changed and everyone else's then for about a few months, you know? So, but honestly, it was a thing where, like, you know, I was really blessed. All my gigs got canceled, which was the first time I had not really been playing for more than like a week in 10 years. But then all my lessons were shifted to online, and I have really great lesson families that were super committed to like making it work. And like, you know, even if you don't want to teach the lessons, we'll just still pay you. We know that this is a tough time. I was really lucky, but they were all on FaceTime. So I remember it was like, well, I have this time. I have no gigs. I need to practice something. I need some motivation. So it's like, well, let me just put out like a drum cover or a play along to like a drumless track and just try to get a little better at this video thing and put it out and try to get out Monday. And it's like, all right, let's try to do that again next week. So it was just a challenge to keep myself occupied and force myself to have a deadline with something to practice or work on. But yeah, you know, then when the summer came around, like 3 or 4 months later, Wisconsin is a pretty conservative minded place where they weren't about the restrictions. So especially once you could get outdoors, they wanted to get back out to bars and go into shows. And there were a lot of opportunities to perform outside in a safe manner. But yeah, I just kept doing the videos. Eventually it was like, well, I've always liked building and stuff. Maybe I could share a video of this project, you know, and put that together. Yeah. But, you know, obviously for me, when I first started, I was like, man, it'd be cool if I could get 1,000 subscribers, because then you can monetize your channel and make money. Right. And then that happened, and it was like, oh, cool. Well, I would get like $5 a month, and YouTube won't even give you a deposit, your payout, until you have $100 in your balance, you know? So it's like, nice. Well, one day I want to get a payout before the end of the year, you know? And it just kept building from there. I try not to be too like number oriented with the goals. Like, man, I would love to have 100,000 subscribers and get one of those plaques. But I think where I am now, it's like, man, that, if I just did the math, that would take a long time, you know? I think for a while too, it was like, this YouTube channel can help my career a little bit too. Like, I would do a video with one of the bands I play with, and that video would help us with getting a gig or something like that. Yeah, I found opportunities to like make the most of the video side of things, where it's like, if I do this vlog about how I prepare for wedding gigs, then maybe these other guys will call me to play with their wedding band, or, you know, get more calls as a working drummer or something like that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So I think that's a big opportunity. And, you know, now I have a international reach. Like, if I was just gigging in my local scene, I'd be having an impact on my community, I think. But like, now I can make a little bit larger impact, you know, and grow that audience online. So I think that's pretty cool.
No, all right. Yeah. Yeah. Man. Good. Brilliant, man. It's all good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. What's the name, like the YouTube name, just so that people can check it out?
Yeah, where can we find you?
Yeah, if you just search Mike Malone Drums on YouTube, you'll find it. I'm pretty sure my tag or account is Malone Drum wherever you go. Nice. So Instagram or anything like that. I'm into long form content in terms of my content creation. So yeah, mostly on YouTube, you can find my stuff. I post some reels or whatever on Instagram, mostly just to try to promote the YouTube channel or whatever else I'm doing gig wise or something like that. But yeah, you can find me there.
Has that been a way that you've kind of to focus on the YouTube rather than to spread yourself and trying to be everything you can be on Instagram and also do the YouTube stuff? Have you found it was just to make very different content in a different format, was just, you might as well just focus on the one thing rather than try and spread yourself?
Well, I guess if it doesn't fit my YouTube theme of like long form stuff, then if it's just short form content, like here's a few clips from me playing this show that I thought was cool, that probably makes more sense on Instagram, and that's the audience for it. I think of YouTube as like, you know, my place where I'm really sharing my thoughts and my projects that I'm passionate about. And Instagram to me is kind of more like, I don't want to say transactional, but kind of like a resume for the gigging world, right? Like,
definitely,
people don't want to see your resume anymore if you're a musician, or your CV or something like that. They just want to see, like, I just want to be able to see you play quickly, see kind of the things you're up to on a regular basis. So, you know, I try to have playing clips and stuff over there, post my schedule of when I'm playing and whatnot. Yeah. And it's the way you know, Facebook is for like, you know, all your family members and stuff like that, as far as networking and keeping in touch. And then Instagram is really how a lot of my fellow musicians kind of stay in touch and whatnot. So that's the platform for there.
Yeah, man.
Great.
I think we'll probably wrap up. But Mike, sorry to put you on the spot. Have you got any questions for us? Is there anything that you've got from other episodes? I know we don't teach.
Yeah. No, not too much. I mean, I guess the one thing I've been interested in here in the States, like, I'm lucky I bought a house about 10 years ago, and I've got a space where I can play. It seems to me like a lot of people in Europe really struggle to have a homestead where they can set up and play loud drums whenever they want.
Yes.
So it's like,
I think
what's the challenge there? Do a lot of you rent rehearsal spaces, or do you have a separate? I know some people will build like sheds in their backyard for
Yeah.
drumming,
Yeah,
That's
it's an
what-
expensive.
or e-drums.
Do that.
Yeah, it's an expensive. I think we're all in sort of like different stages. I think you both like rent a teaching space with someone else that you can kind of use to play.
I mean, well, I'm lucky that
drums.
I actually get paid by someone else to use their space to teach in.
Yeah.
So I don't even have to pay rent, but I'm only there
Yeah.
1 day a week. But Jay,
And
you
then, like rehearsal spaces and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We kind of all go to and
or e-kits
that's
at home.
when,
Yeah.
practice kits and
Yeah.
stuff, and
Yeah,
I think
pad
trying to get your own
setups and
spaces. And
It
whatever.
seems that every house in America, Mike, comes with a basement, and it's like whether there's a drummer in charge of architecture over there, I don't know. But we need to build a rehearsal space into every house that's built. But you guys seem to have basements that can be easily converted, relatively over there.
Yeah, in the Midwest for sure, houses have basements. I know in the South it's, or Nashville or something like that, it's a little less common, or California or something.
Yeah.
And it's nice because, mine is cinder block walls all the way around, and it's underground, so it's a little better for sound getting out.
Yeah.
But, and I've got a understanding wife she never gets mad if I want to play anytime. I've had like a deadline where someone asked me if I could record this thing tonight, and it's like 10 o'clock at night. It's like, do you care if I go down there and track? It's going to take like 2 takes. She's like, yeah, go for it. And our bedroom is right above where I have my drums. So
Wow, nice.
she's a good sport.
pretty cool.
That's a big part of it. Yeah.
Cool.
So that helps a lot.
Great.
Yeah. Harry, you got your Gretsch drum done?
I do.
Your vintage one?
Yeah, I do. It's.
I know you checked in a little along the way.
Ooh.
And then I don't remember what it was last time you had a question that I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, it was the throw. Oh man, I was literally sat for like an hour trying to get any kind of tension on that thing, and then I think I'd stumbled across your aluminium one and a couple of other people that had posted like they'd done similar things, and they're like the thumb screw was like right at the bottom. I was like, why didn't I not think of that? So I just literally lowered it, tightened it, put it back in the middle, and yeah, it's fine.
Man, I love the way you guys say that. It's way cooler. If we just say aluminum,
Yeah.
it sounds so much more exotic.
Yeah, you're saying about the weight. You're saying about the weight though. Those die-cast hoops are chunky. They are insane.
Yeah. I know sometimes, that's the big thing with my DIY stuff. It's like, I just put out a video last week or something about a drum I got at Goodwill. And it's like, man, I tuned it up and it sounded good. And it cost me like
Yeah, I saw
$13.
that,
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. Maybe the answer isn't buying a nicer drum. Maybe the answer is just like spending a little time or cleaning it up or something.
Yeah.
Heads,
Yeah.
tuning. all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, learn to do that. New
Got my
snare
old,
wise.
old sonar kit that I'm just slowly taking the wrap off. I'm going to restain. And
Nice.
That kit sounded so good before. So I'm really hoping that taking the wrap off should make it, fingers crossed, sound better. But
Yeah. And if not, you could just rewrap it or something, Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
it's not a death sentence if it doesn't work out. I know some people see me like take a drum and like do something crazy to it, chop it up on my table saw, and it's like, I don't know, man. Like, my life will go on if it doesn't work out.
Yeah. I've not used that kit in like 7 years, so I don't think I'd.
You're not
if
attached to
if
it
I
as
snap
well.
it somehow,
Yeah.
if like I don't really care.
Yeah.
It's all
What
good.
it is.
Yeah. Why not? Go for it.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Well,
Love to
Mike,
see it.
thank you so much. We'll wrap up there because I know you've got a busy afternoon
Yeah.
of teaching. But
Yeah.
we really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
It's been lovely to
It was
connect.
awesome.
Likewise. Yeah, I've enjoyed your show for a while, and it's nice to finally talk with all of you
Thanks,
face
Mike.
to face.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
and you.
Yeah, thanks. Man.
Come to the States.
Yeah,
Transatlantic
cool.
drum trip. Let's do it.
Yeah,
we'll
do
be
it.
in Ping Chong, yeah. Thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah, thanks,
we're
guys.
going to let Mike crack on with what he needs to do. Thanks, Mike, for being here. You can stay on, or you can leave if you need to, mate. It's all good. But
Sounds
yeah, if
good,
you've
yeah.
enjoyed this episode, please check us out. If you're listening to this, you can find us on Instagram at Count Us In Podcast. We'll also this episode will be coming out. Help me, guys. Friday.
Not this
No,
week.
not
the
this Friday.
after.
Next
Yeah.
Friday.
Yeah.
Good Friday here.
Good Friday, yeah. It's the 18th, I think, is it?
Is Easter like a national, worldwide? I think it must be. Surely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Easter's done quite well globally.
I don't know.
And then we'll be putting it out on YouTube. We've got a YouTube channel as well, so you can dig us on there. Please subscribe because we will put the reels out from Instagram on YouTube as well. So if you're subscribed, you won't miss those. And if you've enjoyed this episode and liked hearing from Mike and any of our other previous content, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/counterscene podcast. There you go. So I'm getting that down pat now. It's going well. Thanks ever so much, Mike, for joining us. We really appreciate
thanks,
your time,
Mike.
man.
Great to have you on.
Great perspective. And everyone else, we will speak to you again soon. Cheers, guys. Nice to speak to you all. See you, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Cheers.